is upon us. Are we riding the tiger again? Plus, the birth of the Machakos Brotherhood is a new alliance in the offing. On the memo tonight, the double tragedy of parents and a cry for the cane. On the Kika, Kaikai takes on the growing popularity for bad manners and foul mouths of politicians. Gachuri punches holes into the big weekday rally crowds. Where would they otherwise be? My angle is on the spiral of violence that knows no end. Yvonne has taken a short break this week, and our sign language gangster tonight is Yula Nzale. All right, welcome to the show. What a week it has been, Francis. I will start with you this time. And the mountain is calling. The president due to address various delegations. Maybe you can just start by running us down what the president is going to be doing, because I'm told that as early as tomorrow there will be meetings already happening.
Actually, the meetings are ongoing. There was a meeting with the governors yesterday. Tomorrow we are told there will be a series of other meetings. They're saying it's small teams before the main meeting on Saturday. The information that I have is that about 4,000 delegates have been invited to Sagana State Lodge on Saturday, drawn from 10 counties. That is the Mount Kenya counties and Nairobi, which is also counted as one of the Mount Kenya counties in diaspora. Religious leaders, opinion leaders, and various people called to go and deliberate on a number of issues. And I believe the president set the stage for this meeting with that joint live interview with Kikuyu broadcasting vernacular radio stations, and quite a number of things that he said that Monday morning, likely to be the topics of discussion on Saturday. Already discussions are going on along those lines. But basically, call it a summons to the mountain, or so to say. The president basically trying to get hold of the situation that is in the Mount Kenya region. There has been some growing rebellion over the BBI process, quite some grievances out there about economic issues and so on and so forth. So basically the president trying to respond to some of these concerns that have been raised by various parties. Already you've seen about 41 MPs from National Assembly and the Senate saying they have not been invited, they will not be attending. But the surprise probably would be Irongo Kangata, the majority whip in the Senate, who says he's not among those guys who will be attending because they have not been invited. But be it as it may, I expect a lot of discussion around the BBI process, basically trying to outline to the Mount Kenya region what is in the document for the Mount Kenya region. Remember, during that radio interview, the president talks about the question of representation and equitable sharing of national resources. Remember that mantra, one man, one vote, one shilling discussion? Most likely it will dominate in Sagana, as well as the question of creation of new constituencies as proposed by BBI. So expect a lot of BBI discussion, a little bit maybe of the response to some of the issues that have been raised, and definitely quite some politics, because I heard the president say that ataendelea kunguruma kama simba, so expect some roaring probably at Sagana, but whether the people he will be roaring to will respond kindly or not is what we wait to see.
Remains to be seen.
Yes. Yeah, he's just spoken about the Sagana meeting, and I think this is it's being held in a familiar place where the president retreats when he wants to speak to his backyard, when he's facing opposition from there. He's done this before. This is Sagana 3.
Nyuma ya tent, you may call it.
Nyuma ya tent, watu tukutane huko tuongee vizuri. And I think if you remember the last retreat for leaders that were held in Sagana turned out to be sort of like a humbling experience for those leaders from that region who are seen to be supporting the deputy president. Remember, they were not even given a chance to speak or even be in close contact with the president. Remember, Gachuri, you were there. And I think the president knows that he needs the support of diverse political players in the region, because now the BBI is entering its home stretch. excuse me, he needs approval from legislators, from MCAs, and of course the people, if it goes into a referendum. Remember now the over 1 million signatures have been verified by the IEBC. The Constitutional Bill amendment has now moved to the county assemblies now for discussion. It's expected to take about 3 months, but I was listening to, I think, the co-chair of the Secretariat, Junaid Mohammed, and he was saying this should be faster than the 3 months that is being expected for the debates in the counties to happen, and for them to get the approval from the county assemblies. But I think now, of course, you've talked about he's expected to discuss a constitutional amendment, BBI. But then now, remember, other than this letter that we will discuss that was written today by the 41 leaders who have not been invited to the meeting, remember the letter that was written by Senator Irungo Kangata about the support of the BBI in the region. He said out of 10 people, maybe only 2 would support it. Of course, the president alipuuza that letter. But soon after that, now he has started trying to woo out the region. Remember the interview with the Kikuyu radio stations last week, and then now the Sagana meeting. And even you've said it, before the meeting on Saturday, he's already meeting various groups, opinion leaders, religious leaders. And I think this is now what he's trying to now drum up support from Nyumbani, because I said it last week, it would be, I think, not a good picture for the president not to have a say in terms of the leadership of the region, because him as the president, he's sort of like the kingpin of central Kenya, and he needs to rally his people around and be able to have a voice and the support he needs from that region.
And Linus, is this the president finally coming out, to confront this issue of what's really happening in Central? I mean, we've seen him have other meetings before, Sagana 1 and 2, but lately he has been sort of promising that, I'm going out. Even yesterday when he was at the police, the new academy they were opening, he actually said, na siasa tutaongea, almost saying that it is coming. Is this it?
This is it, Joe, and I think the president is forced by circumstances to do what he has to do and to go and meet the leaders of Central Kenya for the number of reasons that have been illustrated by both Jamila and Francis. I mean, the BBI report is out there now, it's in the counties. It's supposed to go to the next stage, which is approval of the county assemblies. Now, this cannot be done without the leadership of the proponents of the BBI document, and prime of all the president and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. I'll again refer to what I said last week, Joe, and that is the president going into this space to defend some perception of lost ground. And he'll be walking into a meeting that will present him with this 11-page letter. And I think, Francis, the first thing we did today was to subject this to an authenticity check, because we all remember what we went through when the Kangata letter came out, and then there were reports that it is fake. There was his tweet also denying his own letter and all that. And what we did today was to subject this to an authenticity test, and Francis, we found it to be true. It's a letter that had been written to the president. I know we're getting down to the contents of this now, and Joe, it reads like a very harsh document. One would even say the same authors who wrote Kangata's letter must have had a hand in writing this one as well. It is a very, very harsh letter. It is an indictment of the president's development record. It's a litany of grievances that range from, the big things to, quite honestly, the mundane. On the development agenda, for example, in page 2, the leaders very harshly compare the current times with that of President Mwai Kibaki's administration, where they say we experienced unprecedented rates of economic growth, people had money in their pockets, and economic activity was high and visible, and happened despite many serious challenges that included post-election violence. Further down the letter, and I'm sure we'll be able to read some of these things, they talk about the temperament of the president, the relationship between him and the leaders. In page 5, I don't know whether we would call this grave or mundane, when they talk of, and I want to quote, that it has been noted that you've never visited any part of Mount Kenya region to say thank you to the people for standing with you, and that your tours are increasingly ill-tempered, abusive encounters where the leaders as well as the people are left humiliated. Then there's a comparison there that would make us laugh. We cannot help but contrast this with your demeanor in Kisumu, where you are a frequent visitor. In those tours, you are unfailingly cheerful and decorous, acknowledging, affirming, and respecting the people and their leaders. Quite honestly, this is a letter that will definitely put the president in a bad mood way ahead of time, because none of the pages sounds complimentary at all. It goes also to tackle directly the issue of the president's relationship or dalliance with opposition leader Raila Odinga, and they say we must be truthful with you. We cannot sell Raila Odinga in our region. And then down there they say the successful effort you made to persuade the people and render Raila Odinga unacceptable in Mount Kenya cannot be undone in your lifetime. It is a very difficult read in summary, Joe.
And that's it's quite interesting in the sense that they are making this attempt, because these are people who are allies, politically speaking, of Deputy President William Ruto. And whereas they are pointing at economic policies that they claim have impoverished the people, especially from the Mount Kenya region, and they're saying it is your administration's fault. That's what they're saying, telling the president, and they are supporters of the deputy president. So in a way, basically extricating the deputy president from whatever they see here is a mess, and that's going to be a very interesting political development to watch how it unfolds, where they are actually saying the president is responsible for all these problems, development agenda, economic ruin, and all of these things, but apparently his deputy is not. And that is, I think, a debate that's going to happen in the country quite a bit, Francis.
The easiest way to track back content of this letter is that rally that was held in Gachuri on Sunday. There's a specific soundbite by the Madeira Member of Parliament, Rigathi Gachagua, giving an example that the president is the driver, his deputy is the conductor, that if the vehicle lands in a ditch, who do you ask? You ask the driver, not the conductor. So basically trying to exonerate the deputy president from any failures of the Jubilee administration. And that also responds to what the ODM leader and President Uhuru Kenyatta's handshake partner Raila Odinga has been saying. He has been calling the deputy president Mr. 6 months. You remember that you cannot run away from failures of Jubilee, that you left the president to work alone. This is a document of rebellion. And the easiest way to look at it is the very, very last paragraph in this letter. After all the grievances have been listed here in the 11-page document, look at the last paragraph. Consequently, the mountain will remain restless, dissatisfied, and defiant. Ultimately, full-blown revolt will be inevitable. So it's basically a document of rebellion. And you're likely to see, just like we said last week, you'll see quite some members of parliament, especially from the Mount Kenya region, coming out to respond to the president, to even dare him in some way or the other. And that explains why during that function, I think the day before yesterday, the president talking about kuna watu wengine wanasema nisiongee siasa. So basically responding to some of these things, because nothing new here. A lot of what has been written here is what we have had verbalized in rallies. All they are doing now is to put it in writing and directly cataloging what their grievances are. And some of these things are likely to be responded to on Saturday during the Sagana meeting. You will even see probably a list of, they say no development has been done. Here is a list of development projects that have been completed or are ongoing. I saw the Member of Parliament for Nyeri Town, Ngonjiri Wambogo, attempt to respond blow by blow to the letter that was written by the 41 members of Parliament. And it will be an interesting thing to see on Saturday. And obviously, whatever happens in Sagana on Saturday will attract another most likely rejoinder from the very same MPs. So you will see quite some rebellion and some statements that will be made, both written and verbal. But
also a very overt threat that they're issuing to the president there. I mean, where they're saying that a revolt will be inevitable. I mean, that is chilling, politically speaking, when a group of people say that to the president, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it tells you that the disaffection, especially from these members of parliament, is real. You see, initially, they were holding back a little bit. Maybe last year, the year before, even though the president was accusing them, and of course the deputy president, of engaging in early campaigns. But with the general election next year, a little bit of the restraint will now be dropped. So you will see quite some sound bites coming from these leaders. And what the president will be able to do or will do to them remains the ultimate question, because he told us ataendelea kunguruma kama simba. So it's anyone's guess what kunguruma kama simba is.
I think, Joe, also looking at this letter, and of course after we confirmed that it was genuine, that it was halali, that it was, we were deeply surprised about how bold what has been written here is, in terms of directly going out and brazen, and because there are 11 points here that are in this 11-page letter, including issues to do with credible agents, and they're saying that they don't think there are any leaders who exist now who are able to represent the president effectively in any forum, and they compare how things were during President Kibaki's time in terms of the people who are there as leaders to look at issues that are being raised by the people of Mount Kenya. They speak about the late John Mishuki, Njenga Karume, Francis Mudhaura, J.B. Wanjui, and Stanley Murage. And then they now trash those who they seem to say are the president's people right now. They are calling them, they are not people of caliber that you have in mind. They speak about issues to do with Raila Odinga, as Lina spoke about. They talk about political assassinations. They talk about Mululu. They talk about political persecution of leaders. So there are 11 points here in this 11-page document, and it's brazen, and it's almost, I think, something we didn't expect to see from leaders from central Kenya. And I think, as you say, this Sagana meeting will be very interesting. Gachuri has told us he expects it in camera. Chances are mtakuwa mnasimama hapo kwa fence, Gachuri mkijaribu to find out what's going on. But I think with 4,000 people in attendance, we are going to get to hear what was said.
Yeah.
But let me finish. Joe. I think again, as I said, for the president, it's very important that there is no rebellion back home. We've seen how important the BBI process is to him. And he speaks about it in every forum that he attends, and talks about how good it will be. And when he was speaking at in the interview, the radio interview, he said how those who are opposing the BBI are just looking at what is happening now. They're not looking at the future of the community, how BBI will improve the lives of the people in the community in the next 100 years. And he talks about the new constituencies which the BBI proposes, and how the money that would come through that would benefit the people. So for him, this is, I would love to be a fly in the wall once the president got to see this letter and see that this is how 41 leaders from, I think, is it 11 counties, Gachuri?
Yep.
Feel about him and his agenda for this Sagana meeting.
And Linus, this is interesting for me in two ways. The first thing is that this looks to me like a point of no return. I mean, there is no way you write a letter like this to the president, an open letter, and then one imagines there can be any hope of reconciliation. They've got to a point where they're saying, this is it. And one therefore must ask, where is the deputy president in all of these things? I mean, because I remember even the interviews we've done before, he's been very careful about directly attacking the president in the manner that these people have done. How does he then now relate with these people who are actually his friends? They hang out with him, and there is a perception that can really be created out there that this is actually his position, that this is that he probably was aware of what these people were going to write. How does he come out and say, no, you can't talk to the president like that? Or does he let it slide and say, well, you know, that is what politics is? Because this actually, one would imagine if the president is reading this, he's not only angry with these people, but he's also angry about the person who at the end of the day is at the heart of this divide that we are seeing with regards to Mount Kenya, isn't it?
Joe, it's too early for any conclusions to be made on how this will play out. It is very possible for each of the 41 signatories to this letter to walk back on each of the 11 issues they have written here. Because we must be able to see through the politics and how it plays out between national and regional. This is regional politics. It's not national politics. The issues could be national. I mean, the economy cannot be ethnic. The economy is not regional. It's a national issue. But now the politics is regional. And President Kenyatta has one weapon, and that is the regional card. First, historically, Central Kenya politics doesn't work this way. You don't rebel this way publicly and get anywhere far. So if these 41 succeed with the threat they make at the end of this letter, then history will be written in this country, because Central Kenya has never approached politics this way. Number two, central politics doesn't hang its leaders. Central politics doesn't hang its leaders in public. You can't. Even if they are convicted of whatever crime, political crime, and they list a lot here that will be blow by blow answered by the government. On roads, for example, I think that can be responded to in a very, very strong way by the record itself of how much has been done in Central Kenya region. But what they are trying to do has never been done in public. And so there's still room for President Kenyatta to bounce back. They list people here: John Michuki, Jenga Karume, Francis Mudhaura, J.B. Wanjui, Stanley Murage. None of them ever functioned this way. They don't communicate this way with the head of state. They don't communicate this way with the government that is in office. They communicate in more subtle ways, in more discreet, it's backroom.
Even Kibaki, actually, there was some disquiet in central Kenya, because I remember very well, President Kibaki would usually tell those people, oh, you know, I'm not just president of this place, and he never entertained a lot of these things that politicians do, that you gather a group from central and have all kinds of conversations, only that it never became this public. But I know for a fact that a lot of MPs from the region felt that after Kibaki was elected, he kind of focused on the rest of the country and forgot about the people who had campaigned for him in Central, but it never got to this full-blown open rebellion that like you said, that is in the open, in front of the entire country.
Remember we spoke last week about the hierarchical, disciplined nature of Central Kenya politics. When we joke about tukutane nyuma ya tent, in Central Kenya politics, it's real. Mm-hmm. Like, let's go and sort this out and make a decision on how we progress. Which is why it's too early. It's too early to read anything into all this. Of course, this is a very powerful bargain document, because first of all, these 41 members of parliament, senators and National Assembly, have managed to paint President Kenyatta almost as a failure. They've pushed him to the wall, that you're not doing much for us. You've not done as well as Mwai Kibaki did well for us. Listen to that. That is how Mzee Kibaki built an impressive legacy of economic success. So you're telling the president, you're doing nothing. You're failing us. You know, this is a good what do you call it? A good bargain starting point, because you've pushed the president to the wall.
Raised the stakes.
You've raised the stakes. He's going to show that. Is that part of the roaring, Francis?
Maybe.
That here is my record, and to try and disprove this. But politically, wait for the behind the tent moment, because that's how Central Kenya politics are decided. This restlessness is not new. If you look at the 1976 Change the Constitution movement, that was fronted by Senator Kiika's father, the late Kihika Kimani of Nakuru, and then there was Njenga Karume, who were very jittery about the succession politics, who would take over after Mzee Kenyatta leaves. So this is typical Central Kenya second term jitters. It happened even during Mwai Kibaki's term. Where are we going? I remember there was a debate on who should succeed him. There were arguments about whether it's right for a person from the region, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, to succeed Mwai Kibaki. So the 10th moment is going to be the moment of truth. Right now, there's very smart politics going on here. The 41, and Francis, you pointed out correctly, it started with a very highly energetic rally in Dagoretti, and ends up now with this letter. Very high stakes kind of politics. Politically, you push the president to the corner, but when the chips come down, where will these matters rest? Mm-hmm. I still see a situation where President Kenyatta will fall back to how it has always worked: consultative, disciplined, behind the scenes, hierarchical. You know, the Central Kenya political homestead is a big one. It has a main house and it has some servant quarters at the back. What we know right now, there's a lot of activity in the backyard of the homestead, in my view. There is even a party there. You could hear the popping of champagne. But have they reached the main house where the Rura show should be conducted? That is a question that we still need to be very careful about, because in my figurative mind, it's a big homestead. It has a lot of people in it. And I think there's a lot of activity in the backyard. And that backyard could be the SQ, the servant quarters of this main homestead. I don't think the main house has spoken yet.
Let me take it from where Linus has left it.
And please tell us, these guys or these MPs are 41, mm-hmm. right? What does that look like? What is a sense of perspective here? Like, who is left out there if we are thinking about perspective? So we have 41 who have written the letter that they have. Who is going to Sagana? How many are they? If you link it up with what Linus is saying, that this might just be a small part of that story.
You see, Linus talks about the homestead. All these are children of that homestead, the 41 of them. And they are almost half the population of, members of parliament in that population. So if 41 children out of the household are making noise, then probably it will be incumbent on the father to listen to what they are saying. He may not agree with them, but probably he will be prompted to listen to what they are saying. But fundamentally, I look at page 10 of that letter. At the heart of this dispute is what they call succession management. The Mount Kenya region is in a place where it hasn't been in quite a while, because look at the elections in 1992, 1997, 2002, 2007, 2013, 2017. The region has always had, one of them, gunning for the top job. But the scenario looks slightly different now with the exit of President Uhuru Kenyatta. In 2013, in the run-up to the 2013 general election, the Mount Kenya region was 100% sure who was succeeding President Mwai Kibaki at that time. If you asked that question today, would you give an answer on a direct person and say so-and-so is the likely successor? So the region finds itself in some unfamiliar territory, so to say. And that's why the scramble for these votes is on. And these 41 MPs have given the president two scenarios, which will be very interesting to look at. Scenario one, they call it the strategic choice is the Nyayo, they call it the Nyayo choice. Giving the example of the 2002 scenario where President Moi, as he left, he identified one person and, they call it, quote unquote, imposed on the population. The second example they're saying is the Kibaki succession, where President Mwai Kibaki publicly took a backseat, though behind the scenes, things were being done, things were happening, but not in public, so to say. So they're kind of asking the president to make a choice on whether he prefers the 2002 scenario or the 2013 scenario, because this is a succession contest and the region has quite some votes, and that's why you see the dalliance with various politicians who are angling that that vote basket. You read a paragraph there where the members of parliament are saying they will not agree, or they will not be able to sell Raila Odinga, because the perception already is that the handshake team is grooming the ODM leader to make inroads into Mount Kenya region. And you saw symbolically in Githurai, you saw symbolically in Githurai the ODM leader cutting a tape signifying his entrance to Mount Kenya region. Many people would know that Githurai is the border between Kiambu County and Nairobi County. So the inroad to Mount Kenya region is that Githurai point, so to say. So basically signifying that the journey has begun. But remember, there was also that question of the promise, you know, quote unquote, the promise, yangu kumi, yako kumi, in reference to the deputy president. And that is why all this is boiling down to the Ruto versus Raila contest in Mount Kenya.
As we take a break, Joe asked Gachuri, so 41 wameandika barua, so who is left? But the 41 who have signatories to this letter, 8 are from Meru County, 5 are from Nakuru County, 2 are from Nyandarua, 3 from Murang'a, including Senator Rungu Kang'ata, 2 are from Nyeri, 3 from Nairobi, 5 are from Embu, 4 each from Tharaka Nithi and Kiambu counties, while Kirinyaga and Laikipia got 3 and 2 signatures respectively. So that shows you now which counties have leaders who are signatories to this letter.
You may say, like, it's almost like a 50% kind of a scenario, and this is a significant number, because question is, the issues that have been raised here, are the grievances genuine? I would say quite some grievances are genuine, because when you talk about economic issues, they are real, not just for the Mount Kenya region population, but entirely the country. So there are people who have personal grievances with the president, probably because they feel his administration may have done or should have done some things, or maybe their economic situation is as a result of certain government policies, whether those policies were right or wrong. Even, let's say, for example, the question of demolitions that we saw in Kariobangi and elsewhere, the government gave a reason, that the reason why the demolitions were conducted was to pave way for infrastructure development. But on the other hand, these MPs are saying the manner in which the evictions were conducted and the timing was suspect. So it's a twin challenge of development on one hand and what the government ought to have done or did as a result of that scenario. Number two, you remember the question about counterfeit items. You remember that serious controversy. Was the government justified in fighting counterfeits? Probably it was. But the manner in which it was done is where the whole issue is. Because on one hand, you are addressing grievances directly to the people that, you know, somebody who had a shop in Nyamakema or River Road whose property was named counterfeit, was destroyed, they would have a personal grievance, even though the government may give credible reasons for doing so. So it's a very delicate balancing act for the president to say this happened because of this. Because on the other hand, there are some people who voted for him, who probably campaigned for him, but probably feel that the economy was ruined during this time. So it's a very delicate balancing act for the president.
But the question at the end of the day was, probably one would ask, where were those MPs at that time? I mean, it just shows you the politics of the whole thing.
It, yeah.
That actually...
What actually compounds this situation, and it should be pointed out this early, Joe, is succession politics.
Absolutely.
It's about 2022. If you read this list, these allies of the deputy president, this is the deputy president's side of the Jubilee coalition. And the question you raised there is pertinent. Why didn't these issues come at the time they happened? Why is it coming up right now? If you read the whole document in totality, it will come down to one thing: succession politics.
Actually, if there was no handshake, Linus put it even in perspective, if there was no handshake, would these issues have come up.
They will be defending that record with their blood. So we need to take a break, because when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what the president is likely to say, but also that Raila Odinga factor in central Kenya. Don't go away.